What's up, everyone? Kyle here. I'm really excited to be starting a subscription for this podcast. Now, that doesn't mean that you need a subscription to listen to this podcast, but the benefits of getting a subscription are no ads like this one, and a shout out on each episode, as well as knowing that your money is going towards doing something good. This money is not meant to go to me. Some of it is meant to help me maintain this podcast and keep getting guests on, but most of it is meant to go towards providing school supplies towards kids in need. It's my commitment to put $3 of every monthly subscription towards providing school supplies to kids in need and helping them achieve their goals and dreams as well. This is a passion of mine. This is something that I really have been pursuing. This is why I have started all this, the podcasting, the books, everything like that, was to give opportunities to other people. So I'm very excited to be able to do this now. The subscription is $4.99 a month, so nothing crazy, unless one cup of coffee a month, that sort of thing. But it's very exciting, and it's going towards something that I am really passionate about and believe in. And I hope you enjoy the benefits of being a premium subscriber. There'll also be discounts and things along the way that I'll make available to people as time moves on and as this continues to grow. The link to subscribe is in the description below, so check that out. There's also a link to donate towards the mission of providing school supplies to those in need, so you can do that as well. Thanks again, and enjoy the episode. All right, welcome everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm your host, Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have my friend Maddie with me. Maddie, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm doing well. I'm very excited to hear about your recent trip to Australia and New Zealand.
Yes.
It looked amazing from the pictures.
It was.
And as someone who went to Australia and New Zealand many years ago, I'm really excited to see what you thought about it.
It was amazing, to say the least. Both are beautiful countries, but New Zealand absolutely blew my socks off. Blew my socks off just with the scenery and everything. Like, two different types of beautiful countries, but just the mountains and everything in New Zealand. God, I was so happy when I got to New Zealand and I saw snow-capped mountains.
Yeah. New Zealand is incredible for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of walk me through, like, what was the trip like? Why did you go on this huge trip?
Well, I've been planning this trip for a while. The whole kickoff for the trip, one of my good friends that I grew up with here in Yakima has been living in Sydney for the past, 3 or 4 years now, and she was getting married. So I wanted to make the trip and make it a whole experience for myself. And then I also had a college roommate who was living over in Perth in Western Australia. So that was another kind of motivation to go and explore more than one city and do more than I could. And yeah, it totally paid off. Saw some friends and saw some extra too, like extra good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you flew into Sydney first, is that right?
Yes, I did. So I flew into Honolulu first. I decided to break up the flight a little bit. And so I did 2 nights in Honolulu. So it was a 6-hour flight from Seattle to Honolulu and then a 9.5-hour flight from Honolulu to Sydney. But absolutely worth it.
Yeah, makes it a little bit easier.
Makes it a little bit easier. Wouldn't say so much for the jet lag, but it did. Having a nice beach day in there too was really nice.
Nice. Was that your first time in Honolulu?
It had been in the first time in probably 10 years.
Okay.
So we went as a family vacation when I graduated high school, but we were only there for, I think, 4 or 5 days. And I mean, I wasn't an adult at the time, so I didn't get to partake in the adult activities. So it was fun. It was a really new experience for me to be there, especially by myself. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. What did you just hang out on the beach? Or?
Yep, pretty much. I did that all day, got some sunburns. That made my flight to Sydney kind of awful, but it was worth it. Yep, a little uncomfortable. I thought I was SPF protected, but apparently not. But it was really relaxing. Beautiful days there, still in the 80s, and yeah, just gorgeous. Sit on the beach all day and drink some pina coladas.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
And some Mai Tais.
Okay, so then you flew into Sydney, and how long were you in Sydney for?
I was in Sydney for 11 days.
Wow.
10 nights, 11 days. And then I flew to Perth. And then I flew all the way back to New Zealand. Because the deal was, if I was going to fly to Perth, I looked at flying home from Perth. And no matter what I would have done, it would have been like a 36-hour travel day. Mm-hmm. And that sounded absolutely miserable to me. So I would have had to have flown back to the East Coast anyways. So then I just decided to take a week and go up through New Zealand too to make it worth it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Perth is, it's a long ways from everything.
It's a long ways from everything. It's like the westernmost populated part of Australia. But I did skip the outback. I just flew straight over it. So that kind of was nice. I didn't need to see a bunch of dirt, in my opinion, or bugs and lizards and snakes that can kill you.
Luckily, when I went to the outback, I went for a few days, and there's a lot of nothing out there.
There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Even just flying over it, you look down and there's just red dirt everywhere. Yeah. I would say it would be kind of cool to go back and do the Uluru site.
Yeah.
Is that what you did?
That's where I was at. And I'd say like it was really like magical to be there because it's the Aboriginal people. It's like a very sacred site for them. And it's beautiful. Just so weird because it's just this massive rock out in the middle of nowhere.
There's nothing else. It did. From the research I was doing, I thought it might be worth it to go, but with all the flights and just timing and everything, I wanted to make my most time in Australia spending it with my friends. So that was kind of in the middle of nowhere for me.
Yeah, definitely. Even that flight, I think, was like 3 or 4 hours from Sydney.
Sydney to Perth, I think, was a little less than 5 hours. So not the end of the world, but not the best either.
Yeah. So what did you do in Sydney?
Sydney. So the first weekend I was there, I got to reconnect with my friend Jasmine and her new husband, Dave. They got married. But I had a whole week there before the wedding. So I stayed with them for a couple of days and got introduced to their friend group and, did the whole rowdy thing. And we went out and had some fun. And then I was on Bondi Beach for a few nights too. I went over down to Bondi and did the Bondi Coogee Walk, and it was just, oh man, stunning.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the land, not just the landscape, but just the beaches. It was like Washington's coastline doesn't have anything on this.
Nothing like that.
Nothing. Doesn't have anything. And the waters were so blue. And I got really lucky with weather. So it was early spring when I went over there. They were just coming out of winter, but it was in the upper 60s and low 70s and sunny, and just, it was gorgeous. So I'm really glad I did that too and explored that part of Sydney.
Nice.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah. I feel like Sydney's just a gorgeous city anytime of year. I mean, there's so much to do and see there.
There is. Oh my gosh. I didn't even get to see all of it, and I spent 11 days there. But then after Bondi, I went and stayed in the city since my friend Jasmine was getting married at the Queen Victoria building, so which is like down smack dab downtown Sydney. And I was really lucky. The hotel I stayed at was just like right across the street, and less than a half a mile walk to see the Opera House and the Harbor Bridge and all that. So it was really fun to explore.
Yeah. What was your favorite part of Sydney?
Ooh, Bondi.
Bondi?
Yeah, I can't even say no to that because the beaches were just great, and the weather I had made it all the more worth it. So cities kind of tend to overwhelm me. So when I was in Sydney, it was very crowded. And that kind of did overwhelm me a bit, just walking around, especially by myself, just walking around and taking in the sights. But you get stuck in a swarm of people going one way and you can't get out. And it was kind of intimidating because I'm not a big city girl. Even having been to places like New York City and DC and, the Seattle, even, and Portland, it was just overwhelmingly crowded.
Way too many people.
Yeah, there were way too many people. But it was easy to navigate too. It was easy to walk around, and it was easy to hop on the transportation and stuff like that. So, I mean, I can't complain. Just it was not what I was used to.
Do you find any good, bars or food places or anything?
We went to a couple. Oh gosh, if I could even remember the name of them. We spent a couple times because I was at this point, my friend's Jasmine's family was in town, so we were trying to spend some time with them and just do pre-wedding stuff and get to know the whole group and everything. So we ended up at this casino called the Star, and for a couple, like 2 nights I was there. We all ended up there. It was Vegas vibes for sure. It was definitely Vegas vibes. Really cool. This just building, but went there to watch one of the AFL or NRL playoff games. Well, AFL was on too, but I mean, I didn't know what the hell was going on. So it was like, I'm just here for the vibes. But it was really fun. Went there. Gosh, what was the name of that place? I took a picture of one of the wine glasses because it was really fun.
I know. I can never remember.
I can never remember. I mean, I would say every place I went to was great. Oh man.
Did you happen to go to the Argyle?
Maybe. It rings a bell, but I don't know if I can't remember if I did.
I think that's a nightclub that is there.
Oh, no, we didn't do any night clubbing. We just went to the bars, and I mean, I was usually home by 11 o'clock and ready for bed. I'm past my night clubbing stage at this point in my life.
Yeah, I just remember that place. It was a ton of fun. They had like a whole bunch of different rooms with different types of music.
Oh, that would be fun.
It's a pretty cool place.
If I was still in my early 20s, maybe.
Yeah, I was early 20s when I went there.
Yeah.
But,
so totally different vibes.
So did you go on any like tours, or did you just kind of walk around on your own?
I didn't do any tours while I was in Sydney, just because I was with friends for most of the days I was there. So they kind of played tour guide for me, which was really nice. Didn't have to spend any extra money on tours, but I do kind of regret not going on any, because I think it would have been nice to have like some of that historical information that tour guides offer and everything like that. I didn't get, I did go to a couple of the museums, but I just walked around and couldn't really say I soaked in as much as I wanted to had I not been on a tour. So that is, I do kind of regret not doing that for sure. That's the one thing I should have done.
Oh, okay. So then you went to Perth, and you were there for...
I was in Perth for 6 days. Yes. Okay. Highlight of that was Rottnest Island.
Okay.
Wow. They have little quokkas there.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, they're like these little marsupials. And they kind of look like rats, but they're much, much larger than a rat, but much smaller than a kangaroo or... what's that other one? A joey? No, joey's a baby kangaroo.
Yeah.
What is that other one?
A kangaroo, koala.
No, kangaroo, but it's a smaller kangaroo. Anyways, they were really cute. And they like let you come up and like, you can't touch them, but you can go up and like take selfies with them, and they'll like look into the camera and smile. Oh my gosh, they were so cute. So that was like probably the highlight of Perth. And just they have white sand beaches there and amazing blue water. And again, it only being early spring over there was a couple times where we went in the ocean, and the ocean was still like, I mean, it was cold, but it was probably in the 60s, low 70s in the water. So it was great. Oh. It was great. Saw some seals, saw some dolphins.
Any jellyfish or sharks?
Didn't see any jellyfish or sharks, thank goodness. There was a lot of seagrass washing up on shore, though, so that was... My friend Taylor, and she goes, gosh, I wish this would have been gone by the time you were here, because you didn't get the full effect of all the white sand beaches and the blue water with all this brown seaweed floating around. But it was beautiful nonetheless.
What what kind of stuff do they have there in Perth that you liked?
Beaches.
Yeah.
Beaches. And I will say I've never done a vacation where I've been to so many beaches in my life. So this is really awesome for me. But it was a calmer vibe than Sydney, because it wasn't as populated, especially once you got out of the downtown, like CBD of Perth.
How many people live in Perth?
Oh, I want to say around 2 million.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. Something like that. But Perth is also pretty spread out. So like the CBD was much, much smaller than Sydney CBD and everything like that. So it was just it kind of reminded me of like Spokane, Washington. Just like big city, but small town vibes still. So it was really nice. Lots to do, lots to see. There was a lot of tried Nepalese food for the first time, and just a lot of like Middle Eastern cuisine there, which I was kind of surprised about. But it was, oh God, it was so good. Everything was good.
What kind of stuff is in that cuisine?
Oh, I mean, you're asking the wrong person. I couldn't pronounce half of it if I tried.
It tasted good.
It tasted good. It tasted really good. It was just a lot of different kind of like rices and curries and stuff like that. So it was really good.
Yeah.
And the meat pies.
Whoa. Oh yeah, the meat pies.
God, the meat pies. So good. So good. But when I was in Perth, me and my friend Taylor, we went down to Fremantle, which is just probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes outside of Perth. And they have these markets there. Tried kangaroo pepperoni for the first. It was like they called it kangaroni. And it was surprisingly not bad.
Kangaroo is actually pretty good.
That was the one and only thing I tried it in. There was a couple times I came across like kangaroo burgers, but I was always too scared to try that. I was like, I just feel weird eating something I see in the zoo on a regular basis. Yeah. Like I know it's different over there. They're more like pests and deer. Like they're like deer for us here. But I was like, I just felt wrong. But then I felt like I had to try it while I was there too. Yeah. So
I don't know. From what I remember, they taste like a lean type of beef.
Yeah. well, mine was all spiced up, so I really couldn't get a full flavor of it, but it was good. I can't complain. What I ate was good.
Try any other like crazy fruits or something?
No, not too many. They had a lot of like exotic fruits. That market we went to, they had like mangoes and dragon fruit and passion fruit and all that stuff. But that's nothing I haven't ever tried before too. Yeah. So it was good. Ate a lot of crepes while I was over there too. I found a lot of different kinds of creperies, and I love crepes. So I was so happy about that. But it didn't seem to me like Australia had their own cuisine other than like the meat pies and sausage rolls and stuff like that, which is, I mean, we can find that stuff here too, but it was just that's everybody was like, "Oh, do you have a meat pie yet? Did you try a meat pie?" Hell yeah, I have.
Yeah. What was the best meat pie you had?
I had one that was it was steak and cheese. And man, it was really good. It was really good. The pastry, I don't know what does it, but it's just so flaky. Yeah. Every time it's like 10 times better than a Hot Pocket. That's all I could say.
Yeah. I remember I went over there when I was in college and studied abroad, and being a poor college kid, I lived on meat pies.
Yeah. Good and not expensive for the most part, which was,
those are great.
It was, really good.
So after Perth, then you flew to New Zealand. Yes. Where did you start New Zealand?
I started down in Queenstown.
Okay.
So I had a small layover in Sydney again because you couldn't get if I wanted to fly direct to New Zealand, my only option was Auckland. But since I was flying home from Auckland, it made more sense for me to just do a small layover and start at the bottom of the South Island and make my way up. So I started in Queenstown, which I should have stayed longer than 2 days in Queenstown. I could have spent a whole month there alone.
Move to.
Yeah, don't get me started because I'm already thinking about it. Just stunning. So landed in Queenstown, went up to the Milford Sound one day, and then did another. And I did that with a tour company, which Cheeky Kiwi, 10 out of 10, would recommend to anybody. Cheeky Kiwi tour company, amazing. All of the guides that I had were super fun, super interactive with everybody. And they were small tour groups. So the ones I had were probably 10 to 15 people. It was great. It made you feel kind of, I don't know, included a little bit more than if you would have been on like a large tour or anything like that. So they were great. I'll rant and rave about them for anybody who ever wants to go to New Zealand. Go on a tour with Cheeky Kiwi. So that was really fun. We did an all-day tour to the Milford Sound. I drove up there, and we had a couple stops along the way, so it took about 4.5 hours to get there. Did like an hour and a half long boat cruise around the Sound, and luckily it wasn't raining when I was there, but it had been raining for like 3 days before that. So the waterfalls were just at full power. It was great. Perfect. It was great. It was a bit overcast, but it was still just absolutely stunning. Still cold. It was probably like 40 degrees when I was there, but I stood on the top of the boat the whole time, on the top of the cruise boat, and it was worth it to freeze and get dunked under the waterfall and everything like that. And then I actually did a scenic flight back to Queenstown, which was only about 45 minutes, but it takes you to a whole new view and everything. You see everything from up above in the skies, and it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, such a beautiful country.
Oh my gosh.
There's so many amazing things, which I know we'll get to in a second. But what did you think of Queenstown?
It was amazing. I really wish I would have spent longer than like 2.5 days there. And I was at a hostel called Absolute Hostel, and it was like right smack down in the middle of like downtown, like right on the water and everything, right on the lake. It was beautiful, and just really close to everything. So anywhere you walked around, I mean, I will say Queenstown was quite expensive. All the shops passed like a Louis Vuitton store and everything. I was like, wow, I can't afford any of this, but I'm going to look. But it was beautiful. And I wish I would have had more time to like explore outside of Queenstown into like the surrounding areas a little bit more, because it seemed like it would be stunning. But I'll go back someday. So it was great.
I really enjoyed going there. I did the reverse. I started in Auckland and made my way down to Queenstown. But yeah, that was, especially the South Island, is just like, man, that if there's one place I would pick to move.
Oh my gosh, in a heartbeat. I've never, like growing up in Washington, I'm like, oh, I've seen mountains, I've been around mountains my whole life and done the Rainier Park and all that. And even down in Oregon, when I lived in Oregon, done seen all the Mount Hood and Mount Baker and everything. You get to New Zealand, let alone Queenstown, but you just look and I did not know what mountains were until I went to New Zealand. It's like, oh my gosh, just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, stunning. So, where'd you go after Queenstown?
I went to Christchurch, but I was only in Christchurch for probably a total of 14 hours. So I got into Christchurch probably around 7 p.m. I did another Cheeky Kiwi tour. They drove from Queenstown to Christchurch, and we stopped in the Mount Cook area for a hike and everything like that. So that was really nice. That took all day. Got picked up at 6 a.m. and got dropped off at 7 p.m. But it was worth it. But then I stayed at an Airbnb for the night, and then I had a train ride the next morning at 7 a.m. So another city I wish I would have had more time to explore, because even what I saw from driving in and everything, it looked really beautiful. But the train ride, I took the Coastal Pacific Scenic train up to Blenheim. And it was absolutely beautiful. Probably a 4-hour train ride, but scenic the whole way. And you drive up towards from Christchurch, you hit the Pacific Ocean, and then you drive up the coast, or you take a train, a railway, up to, I stopped in Blenheim, but they go all the way up to Picton. But I decided, since I was going to Nelson after Blenheim, it would be easier for me to catch a bus from Blenheim than Picton, because they didn't have any direct routes from Picton. So got off in Blenheim, spent a night there, and luckily I was off the train by 12:30 p.m. So I had time to do some wine tasting and go explore the Marlborough region a little bit, and it was beautiful. Right, it reminded me a lot of Yakima. Yeah, they had the rolling hills and everything, and you could still see the mountains in the distance and everything, but I felt right at home there. Yeah. It was crazy.
It's funny you say that, because I thought the same thing. I stopped at a little town not too far outside of Queenstown, and it was we stopped at a fruit stand, and it the hills and everything looked exactly
the same. I was I will say, since I was there in early spring, it was a lot more green than we're used to over here in Yakima. But then the other towns we went to, it was more what we're used to, a little more brown, but still beautiful nonetheless. The rolling hills and everything, but it was crazy.
What's up, everyone? Kyle here. I am super excited to share that my audiobook version of Travel Tips is up now. You can find it on Audible, Libro.fm, and anywhere else that you get your podcasts. Go check it out and buy a copy. It also has 30 minutes, a little over 30 minutes of bonus commentary that isn't in the actual book, so that's a little added bonus. But go check it out. I appreciate all the support, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode.
I looked out the window one time. I was like, oh, if I wouldn't have known where I was at, I would have felt like I was home. Yeah,
I know, it's so wild. And I guess it makes sense. We both work in the beer and wine industry, and a lot of New Zealand hops are in the beers that are here. Because it's probably similar climates.
Yep, very similar climates. I will say, because I stopped in Nelson too, which is where they grow most of the hops in New Zealand. The only difference is it was on the ocean, they were on the Tasman Sea. So it was if Yakima was connected to the sea, it would have been no different.
That would be amazing.
It would be amazing. But a really cool little town. I think New Zealand is up to around 4 or 5% of the world's hops now. So they are coming up in that industry. They're coming. They do. It was really cool to see that, and kind of saw some in the distance and everything. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm back at home, right on the farm. It was really cool. They weren't in season, unfortunately. Yeah. They were starting to twine the fields, but they weren't. It was really weird coming from Yakima, where we harvest was just getting started, to going over to New Zealand, where they were just starting their growing season. So I was like, well, it's flip-flops. Exactly.
You have to go back at that time.
Oh, I'd love to. Yes, got to take my dad over there, because he's a hop farmer. So he was the one that I went to that region for, just to see. And it's I'm just curious. I grew up on a hop farm. I would love to see what the differences or the similarities, and this is too similar. I could live here and not feel like I ever left Yakima.
I feel like you should be like, hey, Dad, let's start a New Zealand division.
Right? I should. Should talk him into that. God forbid.
I'll go manage it for you.
Yeah, I'll be the head operations of our New Zealand farm. That would be really fun.
There you go.
If I could ever get him on a plane for over 8 hours, then that would be the trip we take.
That's a little bit more than 8 hours.
Yes, it was. It was a long flight. Worth it, though.
Yeah. And when you were in Mount Cook, I mean, what did you think of that area?
Oh, my God. So I have never seen a glacier before. We walked up to, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, let alone pronounce half of the names that they have over there because they're really hard to pronounce. But it was beautiful seeing that bright blue glacier water and everything. It was really windy the day we were there. I mean, probably, like 60, 70 mile an hour gusts. So part of the park was closed and there was only a limited portion that we had access to. So again, it's something I'm going to have to go back and explore more of. But it was absolutely stunning, like absolutely stunning. It's like the pictures I took don't even do it justice. Beautiful.
Did you see the lakes?
Yes. So that was it was a quick hike up to the lakes. We couldn't go in due to the wind. Like they usually have you can take a kayak out for 45 minutes or so. And they have like those little guided kayak tours. So those weren't running, but we walked up and got to like walk around the lake and just see I've never seen water that kind of color of blue before. It was crazy.
It's like barely even blue. It's so white. It's so cold.
Yeah, it was so cool. Felt really lucky to have done that. Very lucky.
Yeah, that's a stunning area.
Yeah.
Just nothing like we have here.
Nope.
For sure.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so then you make your way up to, did you say Blenheim?
Blenheim. It was really funny. I was pronouncing Blenheim. And then my tour guide who I was talking to, she was like, "You're German?" I was like, "Well, funny enough, my family is German." But it's Blenheim. So I was like, okay, good to know. Cut off
everything and mix it all together there.
I was like, I'm the American in this one. Here we go. I need to be told how to pronounce things. But it was, so Blenheim, which is in the Marlborough region where they grow a ton of wine and everything like that. So we drove through a ton of vineyards. Again, nothing was growing, so I'm going to have to go back in late spring, early summer just to get it in its full effect. Yeah. But it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I was there for one night, and then I took a bus to Nelson, and I was in Nelson for 2 nights. And then I took a quick flight to Auckland, and I got to explore Auckland for 3 days.
Okay.
In surrounding areas. So did the Hobbiton tour.
Oh, how was that?
That was amazing. Loved every second of it. And it was a really magical place, like to see how they kept all of that from, they filmed the Lord of the Rings movies, 20 years ago now? 25 years ago? Long time ago now. But everything was so pristine when you were there. And the tour guides there were really nice. And we were really into the whole Lord of the Rings and Hobbit and everything. So it was kind of fun. It inspired me to watch Lord of the Rings on my flight home. So
there you go.
Passed the time. It was really good. But yeah, just a magical little area in Hobbiton. I would definitely recommend, especially if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit movies, you definitely need to go there. Yeah. Like, magical. So green. Everything there was so green. Gosh.
Yeah, that must take a lot of upkeep, I'm sure.
The tour guide said that they have 30 or 40 landscapers on staff and are working all year round to keep it as like green and lush as it is.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow. Can't even imagine, but I'm sure Peter Jackson bankrolls some of that, so I'm sure they can afford it.
So what'd you do in Auckland other than that?
I stayed in the CBD and I got to stay right on the harbor, so it was really cool. Just kind of walked around. It was like the last few days of my trip, so I finally allowed myself to do some shopping, like what else I could fit in my bag home. So it was kind of nice just to do that and just take a couple days breather before I headed back home. So yeah, basically, I had like a full day down in like downtown Auckland. So just walked around, but it was raining pretty hard that day that I left too. So stopped into a couple cafes, ate a couple good brunches and got really good coffee.
Yeah.
Wow. New Zealand coffee. I came back to America and the first thing I had was a Starbucks. It's like, this tastes like shit.
Totally
This
different.
is totally not what I was having. Like, so disappointed. But it was really good, really fun.
What's maybe like one thing that you didn't get to do that you really wish you could?
Not gonna lie, I kind of regret like not doing New Zealand's such like an adventure town or adventure country. Kind of regret not going like bungee jumping or some sort of high adventure
Yeah.
adventure. Like I prefer my feet on the ground, but I do kind of wish I would have broke out of my comfort zone a little bit and done something like that. You went bungee jumping,
Yeah,
right?
that was the same thing. I was like, you know what? I know this is like the adventure capital of the world.
Yeah.
Like, so when I went to Queenstown, I planned to go skydiving and had everything set up because I was like, I'm gonna do this once and never do it again.
Yeah.
Because I have no desire to jump out of a plane.
Nope.
But we got there, we did the paperwork, everything in Queenstown, and then they bussed us out to where the plane was.
Mm-hmm.
Right when we got there, they're like, yeah, the weather's not good enough.
Bummer.
We're not gonna be able to do this.
Yeah.
So I was trying to reschedule, and I only had one more day there, and so they couldn't fit me in.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Bungee jumping started here, so I'm gonna go bungee jumping. And so I did that just outside of town, which was beautiful. It was fall when I was there. And so like the leaves were all changing colors and just like the river was running and it was magical.
Gosh.
And I jumped off a bridge. So
bless your soul.
Yeah. And now I'm glad that I can say I did that and never do it again.
And never do it again. See, yep. Just on my next trip, maybe. When I was in Nelson, they did have this, I wouldn't call it a zip line because you're in kind of like a cage thing, but it fits 4 people. There was some adventure park that they had right outside of Nelson. I was like, that looks more my speed. I'm strapped in. I have something underneath me. I'm not just free falling into open nothingness. But I looked at tickets and they were a little outside my price range. So I just especially with the time frame. I was only in Nelson for 2 days. And by the time I figured out what it was and where it was, it's like, I'm not going to be able to fit it in. But it looked really cool. It was, I guess, kind of like a zip line adventure kind of thing, which would have been cool.
When you were there, did you have any trouble understanding what they were saying?
Not terribly. I will say the slang in Australia can be pretty hard to keep up with. It's intense. So a lot of the words they were saying and a lot of the words that we don't say in America, I don't think I've ever heard the C word as much in my life as I have over there. But again, it's a totally different meaning over there. So it just made me laugh. Like it just made me giggle. It was really fun. But yeah, the slang, I will now be calling McDonald's Macca's from here on out.
Say good night.
Good night. It was, but it was, as far as like dialect goes, I didn't have too much trouble understanding. But I love the Kiwi accent. Oh my gosh, it's my favorite. It was super fun to hear all that.
Yeah, they're fun people. Like anytime I meet someone from New Zealand or Australia, like they're just like so full of life and fun and just
joyous.
Yeah,
I would be too if I lived in New Zealand.
Yeah, true. So what's how's it been being back the last week or so? Man,
I had to hit the ground running when I came back. So I flew into Seattle on late Tuesday night. And it was also really weird with the time zone changes. So my flight left at 11:55 p.m. on September 26th, but I didn't land into Seattle until 10:55 p.m. on September 26th. So I was in September 26th for almost a full 48 hours with all the time zone changes I was going through. It was wild. It's a long day. But so I landed in Seattle, came home on Wednesday morning, and got to chill on Wednesday and kind of forced myself to stay awake all that day so I could get a good night's sleep. But then I had to work on Thursday and Friday. And then I went to Chelan for a couple of my friends' weddings. And so I was in Chelan all weekend. And then I got back and my parents are moving and I'm moving. And so just a bunch of boxes to come home. So I came home to unpack only to repack. Yeah. It's just, man, but it'll be worth it. Get through this week and it'll be super worth it to get into my own space again. Yeah. Those first few days are always rough. Coming back from a big trip. I think it took me a full week to almost adjust to just my body clock to being back and to Pacific Standard Time. Just staying up like till 2, 3 a.m. and waking up at 10 a.m. And I'm like, I haven't slept until 10 a.m. since wow, it's been a while. Yeah. But luckily didn't have much going on the first few days, so it was all right.
So where's the next trip? Where do you want to go next?
Oh gosh. I think the mountains in New Zealand inspired me. I would really love to go to Switzerland, to see the Alps there and everything like that. Because, I mean, I've done Europe a couple times. I've done Italy a couple times. So it's like I've kind of knocked off all of those major destinations off my list already. Granted, I would love to go back, but I think I would rather explore somewhere new again before I go to a country I've been to. But yeah, Switzerland is high on my list, as well as Iceland. I've heard lots of good things about Iceland lately.
Incredible.
So, yeah, I wish. But it might take me a little minute to financially recover from this trip. It's
always the hard part.
Might be another 2 years before I make it on my next international adventure. There are a lot of places in the States I haven't been to yet, too, that I would really love to go see. So, like, I've never been. I'd love to see Maine in the fall.
Oh yeah.
I would love to do that.
I did it last year. Highly recommend.
Yes, I would love to go to Maine. And then, I mean, well, parts of Florida, I guess I would say. I've been to Disney World, so I've done Orlando. Don't need to do that again, but like the Florida Keys and everything like that, get some beach time. That would be really cool. Yeah, even up to Canada, going up to Vancouver or Victoria. I've been to Whistler a couple times, and I love that place. So I would go up to Whistler again, but do that whole drive and spend some more time on the west coast of Canada. I think that'd be really pretty.
So many amazing places to visit.
I know.
It's hard to choose.
It's hard to choose.
I guess, what was your favorite part of the trip overall? What would you, recommend to people if they're going to Australia or New Zealand?
Definitely in Australia, it's worth it to go into Sydney and to see the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge and to spend time around there. That was really beautiful. It just took me back to my Finding Nemo days and Keith Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. So that was really kind of fun. And Bondi Beach, too. If you're in Sydney, it's worth it to take the 30-minute drive out to Bondi and spend a couple days on the beach. If you can, it's beautiful. And do the Bondi to Coogee Walk and all that. And then Perth, too, I feel like it's so underrated. People miss out on Perth because it is so far away from everything else. But it was worth it to go and spend a week there and just to see the difference of being in the same country, but such vastly different city lives and vastly different I wouldn't say cultures, but just different vibes. Yeah, totally different vibes. Very much worth it. And then New Zealand, gosh, I almost spent 8 days in New Zealand, and I wish I would have done longer because I feel like I just got a taste of everything doing that many cities in such a short amount of time. I really wish I would have stayed longer and just soaked it in a little bit more. And I think that would have made me a lot happier.
Did you, you didn't get to do much of the North Island?
Didn't get to do much of the North Island besides Auckland. And I mean, the Hobbiton tour, it was a really nice drive. It was probably like a 3-hour drive from Auckland. So I went on a tour company with that too. But we didn't get to stop very many places on our drives to and from. So going to explore, especially more north of Auckland into the islands up there, I think would be really beautiful. A little more tropical vibe. Was what I've heard. Yeah.
Now, there's the same thing in Australia too. Like, what is it, Darwin? That's way at the north.
Yeah.
Like, that's a completely different. I know I went to Cairns when I was there. That's like a very beach town type of place. Totally different from Sydney or Melbourne or anything like that. Did you get to do Melbourne at all?
I didn't get to do Melbourne. No. I wish I would have. Planning my flights out and wanting to utilize my time in Australia to spend with friends, it was easier for me to just fly straight from Sydney to Perth than if I would have done like a layover and had a day in Melbourne. I feel like I wouldn't have gotten what I wanted out of it. So it was just worth it for me to go straight to Perth. But again, on my next trip, the next time I go, I'm going to spend time there, and especially Adelaide too. I feel like Adelaide would be really pretty. One of the girls that was on my tour in New Zealand had also come straight from Australia, but she was down on the Gold Coast, and the pictures she showed me were absolutely stunning. So I feel like that would be something I would want to do again too. Check that out.
You just come back with more things.
I know, right?
You started
well,
with.
It's such a big country. It's
it is.
If I didn't want to utilize, if I was doing what I did in New Zealand and trying to hit this city, that city, and just kind of get a taste for it all, it would have been exhausting. It would have been cool, but I'm still young, so I'm going to come back. Like, I'm going to keep telling myself I'll be back. Do that on my next trip.
Yeah. Well, Maddie, any other stories that you want to share about your trip, or any other travels you've had? Or
I mean, this was the first solo trip I've ever done. And granted, I was with friends in Australia, but as soon as I got to New Zealand, that was the first time I've ever traveled alone. And as safe as I felt, I kind of had some challenges with it, just because I'm used to being in an environment where it's very easy to just kind of go out and say hello and everything like that. And I kind of found myself in a little bit of a shell because I was just in such an unfamiliar territory. And granted, everybody in New Zealand was so nice and everything. It was just, there was a couple days where I'm like, oh, I would really wish I had some friends with me. Like, I really wish I would be experiencing this with somebody. But I'm really glad I did it by myself too, because it just goes to show me that it's like I can go anywhere and do anything by myself if I need to. So
did you learn more about yourself or like gain confidence?
I tried. I did fell into a little bit of a reading spell when I got there. I found some really good books. So it was kind of nice to travel around with my books at a cafe for an hour and read, and kind of played that whole vibe of just relax. It was just so relaxing. But that was kind of the vibe I wanted for this whole trip too. I didn't want to feel rushed, and I've done those like school tours, like those EF educational tours, where it's just boom, boom, boom. You have every day filled for 11 days. And that to me can be exhausting, as cool as it is. And I'm glad I've done that experience. This was one where I was kind of like, no, I want to take my time and kind of soak it in and just do me. So it was good. It was really fun. I'm glad I did it. The last trip I took, I was with my sister, and there was a couple times where I was like, okay, yeah, Kelsey would really love this. Like, wish she was here.
I've done a lot of solo travels, and that's definitely like the worst part, is you're seeing something so incredible and there's no one there with you. Yeah. I know I felt that when I saw the Eiffel Tower at night, and I was like, God, this would be really nice to experience with someone.
Yeah. Luckily, when I saw the Eiffel Tower, I was with my sister, and that was amazing. Unbeknownst to us, when we were in Paris, it was 2019, we did a big kind of trip. We did London, Paris, and then we spent a week down in Italy. And when we were in Paris, it was Bastille weekend. So it was their like 4th of July, like Independence Day. I have absolutely no desire to ever be in a big city on a national holiday ever again. As great as it was, and I've never seen a fireworks show like I have at the Eiffel Tower, and just there was an opera concert underneath the Eiffel Tower one night. We sat in the park, and you drink wine out there and eat baguette, and it was so amazing. But there was probably like an influx of an extra 3 million people in the city alone, and Paris already is kind of gross.
Yeah, it's insane.
So the fact that all of the subways were shut down, the streets were shut down, taxis weren't running, buses weren't running, like we had to walk everywhere, and navigating Paris is a whole nother level of confusing. I have absolutely no desire to ever do that again. I don't need to go to Paris ever again. I did it, I saw it, and it was beautiful, but I don't need to do it again.
Yeah, that's one of those cities where I'm like, get me out of here. Yeah. This is too much for my brain.
They're not nice. The French people, I'm sorry. At least in Paris, we didn't explore the rest. I would really like to do the south of France someday. And maybe it was because it was a national holiday, and so there was already so many extra things, and shops and everything were closed. People were kind of already on edge. Yeah. Maybe that was part of the reason. But it was a rough city to be in for a couple days.
That's funny. Was there any issues that you experienced on this trip?
No, I had a really smooth sailing trip. So no flight issues, no issues. I will say the one issue I ran into was when we were in New Zealand, and it was the weather. The one day we were at Mount Cook, and a couple of the trails were closed and everything like that because of the wind. We were only supposed to be there for 2.5 hours anyways, and we only ended up staying for an hour. So a little disappointing. I would like to go back on maybe a summer day and see it with some blue skies, because I feel like that would just be a whole nother thing of beauty. But no, really smooth sailing. Didn't run into any issues. Felt very safe the whole time I was there too. Everything I did felt very safe. Yeah, it was great. Smooth sailing.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
I don't handle problems well, so I'm really glad that I didn't run into any.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like you really did a good job planning and researching.
Yes.
And
I had planned that trip for 11 months.
wow.
I will say there was a couple hotels or hostels and Airbnbs that I didn't book until like 2 weeks before I left for my trip, so it did kind of drag out a little bit. But no, I had been planning that trip for about 11 months, so I kind of, as soon as I had my route set, it was pretty easy for me to figure out and book things and kind of go from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing about your trip today.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed listening and getting to rehash some of Australia and New Zealand. Get to experience it again a little bit.
It was great.
I'm really excited to see your next travels and see some more pictures from Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, I gotta do some posting here with all my. I only posted a few times, but I got the rest. I took so many pictures, so I need to get those on social media.
I know, every time you would post a picture on Instagram, I'm like, oh man, I remember that place. Like, it's amazing. Yeah. I wish I was there right now.
So great. It was so great. I'm glad I got to share at least a little bit of what I've seen so far. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Maddie, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere around the world soon.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always check out every episode on Spotify, Anchor, YouTube, and now Amazon Music as well. Just search for Our Travel Experiences on any of those platforms and it will pop up. You can also find everything all in one place on my website, ourtravelexp.com. And if you want to see my travel pictures as well as travel pictures from guests on the show, you can check them out on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. And if you want to share your own pictures on the Instagram page or be a guest on the podcast, you can message me via that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to see your pictures and hear about your travel experiences, so please send them my way. And if that isn't enough for you, make sure to check out my weekly YouTube show, From Around the World Fridays. Every Friday, I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to answer questions from listeners, share some souvenirs that I bought over the years, share my postcards over the years that I've accumulated, or share videos and pictures from one particular city or country that I visited, and so much more. So check it out, guys. You won't be disappointed. And make sure you go subscribe to that as well. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you somewhere around the world soon. Thank you to all the listeners and subscribers of this podcast. It's amazing that I get the opportunity to do this and, talk to all of these amazing people around the world and hear their stories and share it with you. It's been a dream doing this. It's a lot of fun, and I'm excited to keep moving forward with it. As always, the subscriptions, $3 of the monthly subscription goes towards providing school supplies to kids in need around the world. And I'll be providing more updates on those, on progress with that as time moves along. But again, hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next week for another inspiring story and great episode. Have a great week. See you next time.